Good morning. I've quickly had to change locations this morning. I had to move to the kitchen because the gardener just arrived with all his strippers and stuff, and it was like, no, it's too much noise. So welcome back to another morning show, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with today's guest. It's somebody that I met last year whilst working with her on an exhibition on a project, and Shy Burhan is a fantastic photographer and really specialises in social documentary, and she's a northern girl as well, so I'm really looking forward to catching up with Shy this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's lovely to catch up with you.
How
Thank
are
you
you?
so much. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. Looking forward to talking to you again. Yeah.
Yes, I'm really pleased to be contacting with you again because last year we first met last year and it's gone so quickly the time. But if people don't know about you, how do you describe yourself and your photography style?
I suppose now, at the moment, I'd class myself as a photographer who works on socially engaged themes. Much more documentary style as opposed to a commercial photographer, which is where my roots lie. I don't do that because I don't really have to do that as much anymore. I'm lucky I'm in a fortunate position. I can do the work that I want to do, and I do.
That's fantastic. And how did you get into that area? Because it's a very different area to the commercial stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so I worked in commercial photography. I started about 15 years ago, and then 5 years ago, I was working part time for a community organisation in an area of Bradford which you'd probably class as disadvantaged. And I have this thing in me. I have this social injustice streak in me, where I think you have to give a voice to the voiceless and the vulnerable. And at the time, my supervisor said that, there's this cafe that's opened up in the area, just in terms of making contact. Do you want to pop in and say hello to the people that are running it, and just make them aware of what we do as an organisation? So I said okay. So I went in, I popped in for lunch, and the concept itself of the cafe blew me away, because the cafe works on a pay as you feel basis. And so basically what they did was they would intercept food that was waste food or headed for a landfill because it's surplus, and or just reached its sell by date, and then they got it for free. So it might be from local grocers or local supermarkets, and then they would cook that food, and then they would encourage the punters, the customers, to pay what they felt that it was worth. And I was blown away by the concept. I'd never come across anything like that. And then on the back of that, because I live very close to Saltaire in West Yorkshire, I sort of did a bit of research, I think probably the same day, and found out there was a very same cafe called the Saltaire Canteen in the Saltaire village. So I started volunteering there on every Saturday I did that for about 3 months, just in the afternoon. And then it's that thing in me. I thought I want to do something different. I always want to push myself, and I was fairly well established as a commercial photographer by then. But it wasn't enough. And I remember thinking, I'm really passionate about the work that this organisation is doing. So the Saltaire Canteen came under the umbrella of the Real Junk Food Project, which is a network of pay-as-you-feel cafes up and down the country. So I spoke to the founder, who's a young chap called Adam Smith. He was a chef by trade, and he was based in Armley in Leeds. And I said to him, I'd really like to document the cafes, and I'd like to have some sort of mini exhibition on the back of it. I've never done it before. Would you be okay with that? And he said, yeah, go for it. And I think part of it was it was like, yeah, you're really going to travel up and down the country. But I obviously didn't know me. I'm one of those people. Once I'm determined. Yeah. Once I'm saying I'm going to do something, I get a bee in my bonnet. I do. So I did. I documented the cafe. So I went as far down as Brighton and all the way up to Edinburgh. Wow. Launched. I started the actual tour, I think, in September 2015, and by December we had an exhibition launch in the canteen itself, because it's a fantastic space, really great wall space. And then on the back of that, Saltaire Arts Trail saw it and said that, would you like to be part of the Arts Trail? And said, okay. And I said, I'd like to do a more revised, comprehensive exhibition this time and document the other cafes I weren't able to get to. So I did. I mean, I went as far down as, I think Plymouth was the furthest one I went to.
That's amazing.
Yeah, went everywhere, all over the West Midlands, everything like that. And then that relaunched at the Saltaire Trail. And then I thought, okay, I've got the bug now. I still like doing the weddings and stuff like that, and I genuinely do. I have fantastic clients, I really do, but it's not where my headspace is at anymore. So I'll do it, if people want to pay me, I'll still do it, but it's not something I'm going to advertise or push as much anymore. And then on the back of that, I did another project called I think it was called like the Butterfly Project or something like that. The name of the organization was called the Butterfly Project, and they work with women who are at an advanced stage of recovery in terms of their survival from domestic abuse. And it was something that resonated with me because I grew up in quite a dysfunctional background, and it feels like a million lifetimes ago, but it happened, and it's something that I acknowledge, and I think it's carved me and shaped my personality. And I thought, rather than try and resist that, I want to celebrate these women that are survivors. So I worked with them. So basically, the Butterfly Project was founded by, again, a survivor of domestic abuse who happened to be a fine arts teacher, and she works as a facilitator for art therapy workshops. And then I documented them for about 6 weeks. That launched at the Carla Sangam in 2016, and was supported by the Women of the World Festival. And then I think the following year, thank you. I think the following year, in 2017, I did a very small project documenting the regeneration of Bradford City Centre. It was really small because I had a lot of commercial work at that time on. And then 2018, I documented probably one that I'm probably the best known so far, and that is called 40. And that was founded on the back. I turned 40 in 2018, and I wanted to document 40 other people that were also turning 40 and create and capture their individual truths. Now, what that really did start to carve a niche for myself and a brand for myself, because I'd worked in studios for many years, so portrait photography was probably my specialist area, but with the two previous projects, the Real Junk Food project and the Butterfly Project, it was more of a documentary style, catching people off the cuff. 40, I knew because 40 is such a landmark birthday, they say that life begins at 40, and in a way it very much celebrates the halfway point for a lot of us. I thought this has to be different, and what is it I love to do, because at the end of it, it's my work and it's my project. So I wanted to go back into the studio. So at the time, I lived in an apartment, probably a couple of minutes away from where I live now, which is like a 1-bedroom apartment. It was quite big, and I created a studio in my kitchen.
Brilliant.
I created a studio in my kitchen, in my basement flat kitchen, with a black backdrop, and I thought I just wanted it to be clean and simple, and very much like we were talking earlier about, it's the process, it's the interviews you enjoy doing. What I did was I started the process by having a quick interview with people, a quick chat with people on the phone, and then I asked them all 40 questions about what their experience were about turning 40 or their past experiences in their life, and then I created what I called the Shy type. So I basically borrowed the concept of the archetype, where Carl Jung said there are the 12 archetypes in the collective unconsciousness. So, for example, Red Riding Hood is an archetype. The Big Bad Wolf is it's that kind of thing. It's something that's ingrained in there, but you can't prove came from a source, but it's an archetype kind of thing. And so I said, okay, well, actually, I'm going to call them Shyker-type, because if Man Ray, who's a very famous photographer from the turn of the 20th century, can create radiographs, I can create Shyker-types. So I'm going to do that. So I did that. And then, so basically the concept was, after I asked the 40 questions, which were very specific and unique to them, because obviously we're all very individual, I then said, right, this is how I want to shoot you. Let's book a date in, and it'll take about 15 minutes. I mean, you worked with me in the past, you know how quick I am. Very, very quickly. Yeah, it's good for the client as well, because it's quite nerve-wracking. I know you've done it before, but a lot of people haven't. So to be quick, and then to sit back and chat and then think, wow, it's done. So in the end, I documented over 70 people for the 40 project, but I had to choose 40, and there were 2 exhibition launches for that. I opened up the Saltaire Festival in 2018 with it, and then on the back of that, I was able to apply for my first round ever of Arts Council funding. So I applied for that. Yay! Got that, and then I completed the 40, and the final 40 were on display at the same holding space venue in Saltaire, and that launched I think in February 2019, and that was there for a few months, and that came down. And then in my head at the what? Thank you, and it's so important. I think that
it is. I just think that women and men over 40 get so misrepresented in society and kind of almost written off. And the fact that you have chosen all these different people, all the individuals showing their true selves in an exhibition is just really empowering. Yeah. It's a brilliant idea.
Thank you. And I think there's something about working for me as a studio photographer, studio portrait photographer, as opposed to doing it on location. In a studio, I mean, you've got to have the basics anyways of professional photography. You've got to have the eye, the eye, as we call it, the professional eye, where you can see the subtext. From what you see in front of you, but also you've got to have an element of compassion for the individual. You've got to treat them like human beings, because they are. And then obviously from a technical point of view, you need to understand composition, lighting, positioning. But for me, the thing about the portrait is it's a way of elevating people from who are ordinary to extraordinary. And it's there was a really famous photographer called Henri Cartier-Bresson, and he talked about the decisive moment where you capture, you just capture it. And he was a street photographer, and I talk about the defining moment in photography. And for me, is that very that element where all the components are there, everything's aligned. You're in the studio, the lighting's right, the position's right, the makeup might be on point, everything's right, and the mood is right, and it's that defining moment. Capture it, and it's there, and you just know that as a photographer it's going to work. And 9 out of 10 times it just does. You just know it will. It's your instinct that tells you that. So that was 40, and I that featured quite heavily in the local press here. And then obviously in 2019 I did one called Body Talk, which you featured in as well. I'm very pleased to work with you. Yay! So Body Talk was so at that point I'd lost probably about 3 or 4 stone in weight, and the thing about women, how we beat ourselves up, even though we're all good, is because I'd been big for quite a long, and I've put a lot of that weight back over the lockdown, but it's fine. Some of that's close. When I lost the weight, it was something I'd wanted to do, but I didn't find it. I wasn't happy about it, funnily enough. Because I realized the weight for me was a security blanket for so many years. So losing the weight, I felt quite vulnerable, and and I just thought, how can I tackle this in a way that would serve my practice as a professional photographer, but also speak for many other women out there of all different shapes, sizes, colors, all the rest of it, so that they could celebrate their bodies, and and maybe give me some sort of sense to how I was feeling at that moment. So I'd spoken to a poet in the local area. I'd known her. I think it was at the Saltaire Festival that I met her. And I said to her, I know you told me that you've had a few issues with your own body. She's a mum of 3 beautiful daughters. How about we do something? It'll be the first time I'm collaborating with something. I'm going to go for Arts Council funding again. And I got it again. I did get it again for this. Let's do something together. Let's collaborate something and create something quite beautiful. So what I did was we started working on Body Talk, and I basically I shot everything in my new apartment on a yellow backdrop, because yellow signifies positivity and sunflower and sunshine and all the rest of it. And that's how I wanted the women to feel. If I wanted to feel like you were all walking in a field of flowers and you're at your most optimum in life, everything was sunny and bright and all the rest of it. So and I wanted people to wear what they would wear in that scenario. And so we shot it on quite a cold winter, October month. But bless you all. I hope the hot tea helped in the end.
Yes.
And then, and the process was that, we had a quick chat on the phone, and then I asked you to submit 3 words that resonated with you and as to why you loved your bodies. And then we incorporated one of those words into the final exhibition. We shot that again. I worked very quickly. I know the studio inside out, so even at home. And the other thing about working at home as well and creating a home studio is there's a psychology behind it. In fact, is that when you're inviting somebody into your home, they immediately relax because they're in an environment, it's not a clinical environment, it's not a sterile environment, it's somebody's home. So they get a measure of you as a person, first of all, but B, they're in somebody's home, so it looks less formal, and they just relax. And then my job is half done, to be honest with you. And obviously there's other implications in that you're saving money and not having to pay different rate, and you can pick and choose a date and time that suits you at home. You're not going to waste your time or anything like that. So there is a psychology behind that. So on the back of that, when I completed the shooting, it was 58 women in the end that I shot. I gave sample images of the portraits to Sharina so that she could then use the words that the women have submitted and the images themselves to create a lengthy poem that should perform on the night of the exhibition. So that launched pre-corona in January. Seems like such a long time ago now.
It really does.
In January. It really does. Yeah, and again, that launched at the Carla Sangam, and I was, thrilled that so many people were so enraptured by it. And again, as a practitioner, I'm changing. So the thing is, you talk about all the components in the studio. As you evolve as a practitioner, you think actually it's much more than that. And I'm not a big fan of frames. I find them quite boring. I've done them in the past, but I'm always thinking about how can you change things, how can you go next level with your work and do something that's different and unique. So as you know, when I shot women, there was a sense of movement that I wanted them to incorporate in their images. What I decided was I wanted to display them in a way that really celebrated that sense of movement, and you can't necessarily always do that on a wall. What I wanted people to do, the audience, was to engage with that. So I created, as you know, because you've got yours, I created glasses. Yeah, you've got one. I created 58 individual bespoke glass cylinders of the women. So basically it looked like a clear glass vase, and the lab I worked with the lab that I worked with, and we created a composite of 3 images of the women, and then we filled that, we rolled it, and then popped it into these glass cylinders, and so every piece was bespoke to them. And I think that again really pushes you, a practitioner, so it's like an album covers, they're always different. A musician doesn't create the same album, an actor doesn't create the same film. It's exactly the same with photography. You are really pushing yourself and pushing the boundaries and saying that, how can I do something that will really resonate with the audience and and celebrate the work of the subject matters, but also push you as a practitioner above and beyond what's been done before.
How easy was it to get? I think you did more than so. It was absolutely amazing. How easy was it to get the people to come forward for that particular exhibition? Because I can imagine, I am used to having my photograph taken, and I loved working with you, but I can imagine some women would feel quite vulnerable putting themselves in that situation, because it's a really honest portrayal and it's a really beautiful piece of work. But how easy was it to get people to come forward?
I was surprised at how easy it was. I think within 2 weeks I had 58 women, and the original concept was to have 52. Yeah, the original concept was to have 52 to celebrate each week of the year, because we're supposed to be body positivity all the year round. Now, unlike 40, where I had to really hone down on 40 people for a very specific reason, because it was about turning 40, I decided that, I'm not going to be a stickler with this. If there are more women that come forward, I dreamed that more women would come forward. I didn't realize that 58 women would, but I wasn't going to turn them away. The subject is too important. Like you said, they are very, very vulnerable women. Some of them were cancer survivors. There was a lady that had alopecia, and this was the first time they'd ever stepped forward in a studio environment for many of them. So I said to them, okay, we're not going to turn you away. We absolutely will celebrate you. But once I had over 52, I was like, okay, that's it now. I can say thank you. I've got over 52 now, and let's work with what we've already got. I mean, it was surprisingly easy. I think I have a newsletter, so people shared that, and they were like, "Oh, we want to put forward our mum, or we want to put forward our sister." It was like our sister, ourselves, that kind of thing. And because I think the process itself was easy, where I asked you to submit 3 words, as opposed to like a dissertation or something like that. I think that the process itself was quite seamless. So you always got to think about the individual. You've got to think about the vulnerabilities. I worked with a lady that had she couldn't see very well. She had sight issues, and I said to her, "Look, don't worry. If it comes to it, because you live local, I can come and pick you up." So I did. We worked together, and it worked really seamlessly. Actually, it was quite empowering seeing so many women wanting to come forward and celebrate their bodies, because we don't celebrate our bodies enough. So the fact that some people said that.
Would you turn it into a book?
Possibly, yeah.
Because I think it would
possibly.
be really.
I mean, it was the same with 40.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It was the same with 40. I had an idea of doing the book. There was a mentor I was working with at the time that probably said, you don't want to get blood out of a stone. But even I think one of the things about mentors is they mentor you, but they're not always right. And they gave you the best advice for the right reasons. But I think on hindsight, I probably would have created a book. But having done these quite two big mammoth projects have been that the kudos of being funded by the Arts Council and being celebrated by them. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait and have a retrospective, maybe in 5 years or 10 years or something, of the various projects that I've done up to that point, and do a sort of big collection of books. Maybe do it when I'm 50 or something like that. And see where I'm at that point. But I think my regret from not doing the 50 is not doing a book. And so, because I've not done it, and I thought there's no point in doing it for Body Talk, I might as well just do a big compilation of everything at that point. I would definitely.
I love your passion for what you're doing, and I love the fact that you found it kind of, you found the social documentary style kind of late 30s, didn't you? When you really kind of honed into your. And I love the fact that you've discovered this. Do you feel like you've come into your own now and you feel much more confident than you did when you were younger?
Yeah, I do, 100%. First, as a person, yes, absolutely, and as a practitioner, definitely. I think it is about one of those things when you're an artist, you want to create a brand for yourself. What is it you're known for? And ultimately, it's always got to go back to what you're passionate about. And my passion is working in studios, is working particularly with portraiture, and it's about peeling back the onion, peeling back the layers, peeling back the onion, and really getting to the truth and the honesty in that person. And the thing is, I'm almost chasing my tail all the time. I always say that my thing is I want to create that ultimate, that portrait that is almost like Da Vinci's Mona Lisa, but it'll be like my Mona Lisa. But the thing is, I probably never will be able to do that, because everything changes and technology changes. But it's that thing about chasing it. So I'll probably be chasing it right up until the end of the day that I die. And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's part of the joy as well. Thinking, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get there. But I probably won't, in all honesty. Yeah. And that's fine as well. At the end of the day,
what's next?
About the interactions.
So what's next?
So the next one is... The next one is called Women in Uniform. So Women in Uniform, actually, I had the idea sort of late last year anyway, and I kind of put it on the back burner just to sort of focus on the Body Talk. So when the exhibition launched for the Body Talk in January, I took a little bit of time off, and then I was thinking I really do want to work on my next project. People were sort of praising Body Talk at the exhibition and all the rest of it at that point. And I thought, I'm not. There are a few things that I want to comment on. Two of the things that I noticed in 40 and in Body Talk is that the majority of participants were women, but particularly, and which I'm very happy about, and they were particularly sort of middle class Caucasian women. And don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful for anybody that comes forward. But I was like, well, where's everybody else? Where are the women from Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups, or the men from Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups?
Yeah, especially when you consider
exactly. We live in
a multicultural city and area with a real diverse mix of people, which is fantastic. And what a shame you didn't get those people coming forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I mean, I'm of South Asian origin myself, so I mean, I know we exist because I exist. So And I think it's about, there's a wider conversation around having fewer people of minority backgrounds being involved in the arts in general, and trying to get them more involved and make it more inclusive. I think there are structures in place that need to be changed. I think there is a sense of institutionalized, we'll say racism, I don't know if that's right, or misogyny, but that's been there for many generations. I think it's there as it is entrenched in many, many big organisations, and it is constantly changing. So what happened is lockdown happened and Black Lives Matter happened. And then I thought, you know what, I am really going to do this next project now. And my focus has changed. So Women in Uniform, which is the name of the project, it was initially to celebrate women of colour who are very much at the top of their careers. So there might be surgeons, there might be, you know, mechanics, because we don't get many coloured women mechanics, you know, that kind of thing. But when lockdown happened and, you know, the recession happened and Black Lives Matter happened, it became much more important for me to do it. Obviously because I'm of South Asian origin myself, and with the global movements that were happening at that point, it no longer became about just finding a venue and putting it on the wall and doing another exhibition. It became important from a very personal standpoint, and also to capture very much the zeitgeist that was happening in the world at that point. So Women in Uniform is in fact to celebrate women that are at the very top of this career, but it's going to be much more comprehensive. I've applied for Arts Council funding for it, so I've got another 3 weeks to hear back for that. Right. And the first year I'm going to just spend researching the venues around the country. I want to take myself outside of Yorkshire, researching the subjects and having genuine, deep, heartfelt conversations about how they feel because of their ethnicity or whatever it is, their gender, being who they are, working in an area that's traditionally underrepresented by people like them. And then I want to document them and create a series of work. So I'm still looking for venues outside of Yorkshire, but that's part of the research. I'm going to spend a good year doing the research, testing out test subjects, and then I will spend another year documenting it, and hopefully I'll find the right partners and venues by then.
Wow, it's amazing, Shy, and you're such an inspiration. And I love the fact that you use your voice and your photography skills to tackle some of these really important issues in society and make a difference. You know, it's so easy for people to sit back and say, well, what can I do to make a difference in the world? And you do stuff every day through your work. It's fantastic. So thank you so much. How can people find you?
So if they go into my website, it's www.shybphotography.com. You've got all my contact details on there, and you've got categories that show all the work that I've done in the past, and also little bits about my commercial work in the past, just to add a little bit of extra flavour. So yeah, just contact me anytime.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, and good luck. And I can't wait to watch your progress with this next project. It'll have such a big impact, and I hope we get to work again together at some point. It's fabulous.
Oh, I'd love to work with you. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for inviting me along.
Pleasure. Thanks, Shy. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Well, what an inspiration. And I just love talking to women that really do make a difference. And if you get a chance to go and have a look at Shy's website, you can see some of her past projects, and the exhibitions that she put on were just superb. And the poetry that went with the Body Talk exhibition had a real impact on me. So what a pleasure. Another fantastic lady. So I hope you're enjoying these interviews. I will be back next week with some more inspiring ladies. So enjoy the rest of your week.